He was supposed to film the happiest moment of my life. But right before he hit record, he leaned in and whispered, "Does he know I'm the dad?" I froze. My fiancée stood across the yard, one hand on her belly, the other holding pink lemonade. I still had the ring in my pocket, and the confetti cannon in my hands. "My name's Ryan, and this is the story of how a gender reveal revealed everything else." I froze. At first, I thought I'd misheard. Laughed, almost. One of those reflexive, nervous exhales you give when your brain can't process something. But Chris didn't smile. Just stepped back, hit record, and lifted the camera like nothing had happened. And everything around me, the balloons, the music, the chatter, turned to static. Let me rewind. My name's Ryan. I'm 32, work construction, and for most of my life, I never thought I'd be a husband, let alone a father. But then there was Melissa, and everything changed. She came into my life like the first good rain after a drought. It was fast, unexpected, and you don't realize how dry things were until you start feeling whole again. We met at my niece's birthday party, the kind of event you show up to out of obligation and leave with cake on your shirt and a headache. But Melissa? She was sitting under a tree, holding a balloon animal that had half deflated and laughing with the kind of ease that makes people forget they're strangers. She was a nurse. Smart, kind, used to chaos, but somehow still soft. I was smitten within 10 minutes. 6 months later, she moved in. A year in, she was pregnant. And somewhere in between, I knew I was going to marry her. I just hadn't asked yet. So I planned it. We decided to do the gender reveal at her sister's house. Backyard, barbecue, close family, nothing over the top. Melissa didn't want spectacle. She just wanted love around her. Said the baby deserved that kind of energy. I agreed. But secretly, I'd been working with her sister and my buddy Chris, the guy who was going to film the reveal, to add one more surprise. Right after the balloons went up, I was going to get down on one knee. I had the ring in a little wooden box, tucked inside my jacket. I'd practiced the speech a dozen times in front of the bathroom mirror. It wasn't anything fancy. I'm not a poet, but it was real. I was going to tell her I didn't know what kind of dad I'd be, but I knew the kind of partner I wanted to be. The kind who stayed, who showed up, who didn't run when things got hard. The kind her kid could look up to. I thought that was enough. Until Chris, the guy I trusted to film this moment, lowered the camera, looked me square in the eye, and said it. "Does he know I'm the dad?" At first, I thought he was joking. I even laughed, a quick breath of disbelief. But he didn't smile. He just stood there, camera loose in his hand, like he'd just dropped a live grenade in my lap. And everything around me, the balloons, the music, the chatter, turned to static. I looked at him again, like maybe I'd misheard. He nodded once. Slowly. "Man," he said, "you deserve to know." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. My mouth went dry. My knees locked. It felt like all the oxygen in the yard had been vacuumed out, and I was the only one gasping. Melissa was laughing with her mom a few feet away, one hand on her belly, the other holding a cup of pink lemonade. She looked peaceful, radiant. I suddenly felt like a stranger at my own party. Chris didn't explain, just stepped back, lifted the camera again, and said quietly, "Whatever you do next, I'll follow your lead." I should have walked away. I should have called it off. I should have demanded answers right then and there. But instead, I popped the cannon. Pink. It rained down like cotton candy fireworks. Everyone cheered. Melissa covered her mouth in shock and started to cry. Happy tears, I think. And I dropped to one knee. Not because I still wanted to, but because everyone was watching. Because the words were already lodged in my throat. Because walking away in that moment, with cameras rolling, family cheering, would have meant detonating the entire day. My hand shook as I opened the box. She gasped, said my name, and I said the words I'd rehearsed a dozen times. Not with the same certainty, not with the same heart, but because momentum is a powerful thing. Because denial is louder when the truth is still half-whispered. She said yes. She put the ring on. The crowd erupted. But inside me, I was standing in the middle of a celebration with a fault line under my feet, and the only thing echoing in my head was Chris's voice. "Does he know I'm the dad?" And I realized something that still makes my chest ache to remember. Sometimes, the most dangerous lies are the ones wrapped in joy. They say photos lie. They freeze a moment, a smile, a hug, a kiss, and pretend that's the truth. But a camera can't catch the pause between words, or the flicker in someone's eyes when everything shifts. It can't show what's breaking beneath the surface. That's how it felt when I watched the footage back the next morning. I was alone in the living room. Melissa was at work, double shift at the hospital. I told her I was taking the day to call family to let the proposal news settle. But really, I needed space. I needed to see what happened through a lens that wasn't clouded by shock or confetti. Chris had sent me the video late that night with a short text. No edits. Just raw. I pressed play. There we were, me fumbling with the Canon, Melissa glowing, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. The exact kind of memory people dream about. But all I could focus on was the moment his camera dipped, just for a second, and his voice caught on the mic. Does he know I'm the dad? It was there. Quiet, but clear. Like a glitch in the Matrix. I paused it. Rewound. Played it again. Same words. Same weight. And then, nothing. Just the moment rolling on like nothing had cracked open behind it. I felt sick. I knew I had two choices. I could confront Melissa immediately. Or I could go to Chris first, hear him out, and find out if this was some kind of twisted joke, or something worse. I called him. He picked up on the second ring. You watched it? He asked. Yeah, I said. I need to see you. He didn't ask why. We met at a diner 2 blocks from my apartment, the kind of place where the waitresses call you hon, and the pancakes come stacked like apology letters. We sat in a booth by the window. I didn't touch my coffee. He didn't look me in the eye at first. Start talking, I said. And don't lie. He nodded. Took a deep breath. It was a year ago, he began. Before she knew she was pregnant. You guys had just started dating. She and I, it was one night. Drunk. Stupid. It didn't mean anything. We didn't talk after. I clenched my jaw. My fists. Everything. You slept with her while we were together? It was early, man. Like, barely a few weeks in. I didn't even know you were serious. I wouldn't have, he stopped himself. Look, I'm not proud. I didn't even know she was pregnant until the invite for the reveal showed up. My head was buzzing, like static behind my eyes. I needed to know, he said quietly. If the kid was mine. That's why I said it. I couldn't just stand there and pretend. I stared at him. You picked that moment? That day? To drop this? I panicked, he said. Watching you propose, watching her smile like everything was clean. You couldn't let me have 5 minutes of peace, I snapped. You couldn't wait until after? He didn't answer. And in his silence, something in me shifted. Not rage. Not yet. But something colder. Something that tasted like grief in reverse, mourning a future that hadn't even begun yet. I left without finishing my coffee. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. When I got home, Melissa was there. She was humming in the kitchen, wearing that future mama apron my sister had given her, making toast like the world hadn't just tilted off its axis. She turned and smiled when she saw me. Hey, babe. Everything okay? I stared at her. She noticed. What? She asked, worry blooming across her face. Ryan, what's wrong? I didn't say anything at first. Just reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Played the video. Let her hear it. Her face dropped. Her hands froze. And then, the tears started. She whispered, I didn't want it to be like this. Her hands trembled. She gripped the edge of the counter like it might keep her anchored. I almost told you, she said. I looked at her. When? She took a breath, shallow, shaky. A few weeks ago. I was sitting in bed next to you. You were half asleep, and I had my hand on your chest, just listening to your heartbeat. And I almost said it then. So why didn't you? Her voice cracked. Because I was scared. Because I was counting the weeks over and over, and hoping the math would land in your favor. Because the moment I told you, everything could change. And I wasn't ready to lose you. I didn't speak. And maybe that's selfish, she added. Maybe that makes me a coward. But I wanted to believe it was yours. I wanted it so badly, I let that want drown the truth. I stared at her, and for the first time, I didn't see betrayal. I saw fear. And guilt. But also love. Messy, human love that had no idea what to do with the truth once it showed up at the door. Melissa didn't deny it. She didn't fumble for excuses or throw Chris under the bus. She just stood there in that kitchen, with the toaster ticking and the butter melting beside her, and said 3 words that cracked the floor under my feet. I'm so sorry. And maybe that's what hurt the most, the way she said it. Not defensive, not performative. Just honest. Wrecked. Like she knew what this meant and didn't dare try to spin it. I leaned against the counter. My legs didn't want to hold me. You slept with him? I asked, though I already knew. She nodded. It was one night. Before we were exclusive. I didn't think it mattered. You didn't think it mattered? I repeated, voice low. Melissa, I asked you to marry me yesterday. I know, she said. And I wanted to say yes. I wanted that to be true. Wanted it to be true? I repeated. I don't know what you want me to say, she whispered, hands trembling. That I regret it? I do. That I should have told you? I should have. But I didn't know I was pregnant until weeks later. And by then, we were real. We were already building something. I stared at her. The woman I thought I knew inside and out. The woman whose laugh I'd memorized and whose heartbeat I'd fallen asleep beside. I didn't recognize her now. And yet, part of me still loved her. That was the worst part. Why didn't you tell me when you found out? I asked. I convinced myself it didn't matter, she said. I counted the weeks. It lined up either way. And deep down, I wanted it to be yours, Ryan. I prayed for it to be. Because you're the man I want this child to have. I laughed, bitter, empty. So you gambled with a life. With my life. My future. I didn't mean to, she said. But you did. We sat there in the silence, that awful, breathing kind of silence that has weight and memory. Then I asked the question I'd been dreading since Chris said those words. Have you talked to him? About the baby? She hesitated. No, she finally said. Not until yesterday. Not until he said that at the reveal. I watched her eyes, the way they flickered, searching for a place to land. He's not trying to claim anything, she added quickly. He doesn't want to be involved. But what if it's his? I asked. What then? Melissa swallowed hard. Then, I guess we find out. That's when I realized this wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a question I couldn't live inside forever. I needed an answer. So I said the words I never imagined I'd have to say. I want a paternity test. She nodded. Quiet. No protest. No tears this time. Just a woman watching the life she built start to tremble. I'll do whatever you need, she said. Whatever it takes to make this right. I pulled out my phone right then and there. Googled the nearest private clinic that offered non-invasive prenatal testing. Called them on speaker. We need an NIP paternity confirmation. She's in her second trimester. The receptionist scheduled us for Thursday. Said results would take about 72 hours. Melissa and I didn't sleep in the same bed that week. We didn't talk much either. She stayed at her sister's. Said she didn't want to crowd me. I didn't stop her. I spent those nights walking the neighborhood, looping around blocks I'd walked 100 times, but never with this weight. Never with this hollow in my chest. We didn't talk much either. She stayed at her sister's. Said she didn't want to crowd me. I didn't stop her. I spent those nights walking the neighborhood, looping around blocks I'd walked 100 times, but never with this weight. Never with this hollow in my chest. People think betrayal is loud, screaming matches, broken plates, slammed doors. But it's not. It's quiet. It's her toothbrush still on the sink. Her robe still hanging on the back of the door. The prenatal vitamins on the counter, mocking you with every silent morning. The day of the test, she met me at the clinic. No makeup. No jewelry. Just a hoodie and her tired eyes. They swabbed her. Swabbed me. Said we'd know in 72 hours. 3 days. I told myself I wouldn't check my phone obsessively. But every buzz made my stomach flip. On the second night, I got a call from Chris. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Ryan. I know I messed up. I didn't just say the wrong thing. I said it in the worst moment possible. I could have waited. I should have. But I panicked. There was a pause. Then his voice cracked. I couldn't keep standing there, watching you propose, knowing what I knew. Or what I feared. And maybe that makes me selfish. Or cowardly. Or both. Another pause. I didn't say it to hurt you, man. I said it because not saying it started to feel worse. And I know that doesn't excuse a damn thing. The last part came quieter. I'm stepping back. Not because I don't care, but because I don't deserve a place in this. Whatever you choose to do next. I won't interfere. I deleted the message. Didn't save his number. That was the last time I heard his voice. And honestly, I hope it stays that way. The results came in on a Sunday. I stared at the email for 10 full minutes before opening it. And what it said changed everything. I opened the email like a man disarming a bomb, slow, cautious, waiting for a sound that meant I'd lost everything. The results were at the top. Plain, clinical, no emotion. Probability of paternity, 0%. My heart stopped. Not metaphorically. I mean, I actually stopped breathing. The baby wasn't mine. It wasn't even a maybe. No blurred lines. No margin for error. 0. I read it again. And again. Then I just sat there, In my car outside the clinic, hands shaking on the wheel, watching my reflection in the windshield like I might spot some other version of myself, the version who still got to believe this child was his. But he wasn't there. He was gone. I didn't cry. That part comes later. What I felt in that moment wasn't sadness, it was stillness. Like grief had pressed pause. Like the world knew I couldn't process this all at once, so it wrapped me in a kind of numb silence just to get me home without wrecking the car. Melissa was already at my place. She stood when I walked in, eyes locked on mine like they could pry the truth out without words. I didn't say anything, just handed her the printout. She read it once, twice. Her knees buckled a little, and she sat down hard on the arm of the couch. I didn't sit. She looked up, voice quiet. So, now you know. I nodded. Do you believe me now? That I didn't know either, she asked. And here's the thing, I did. God help me, I did. I believed she was hoping, praying, willing the dates to line up in her favor. Because she wanted it to be mine, wanted our life to be clean, wanted the future we've been building to stay unshaken. But hope isn't the same as truth. And truth doesn't care what you were hoping for. I sat down across from her. Still didn't speak. She reached for the ring, the one I'd put on her finger just 6 days earlier. I don't expect you to still want this, she said. I looked at her hand, at the ring, at the woman who, in some strange way, still held a piece of me I hadn't figured out how to take back. And I said, I don't know what I want anymore. Her eyes filled up. I never wanted to lie to you, she whispered. I know. I thought the truth would destroy us. It might, I said. We sat like that for a long time. No yelling, no accusations. Just two people staring down the wreckage of a future they almost had. I wish I could say I made a decision that day, that I stood up and said, I forgive you, or I can't do this, or let's start over. But I didn't. Because when you find out the child you've been dreaming about isn't yours, when the nursery you imagined, the lullabies you hummed in your head, the name you wrote in a notebook, all belong to another man's story. There's no script for that. There's just silence. And silence can be a decision or a wound. Melissa left the apartment that night. She packed a small bag. Said she'd stay at her mom's. Give me space. She didn't cry in front of me. But I think she did in the hallway, after she closed the door. That's when I broke. Not because I wanted her back. Not even because I wanted the baby. But because something I believed in, deeply, honestly, I had died. The dream of being a father. With her. In that way. I was grieving a future that would never come. And grief is sneaky. It doesn't just show up once and leave. It lingers. In baby aisles. In ultrasound pictures on coworkers' desks. In the way you reach for the dad mug someone gave you and have to stop halfway. I stayed in the apartment. I didn't see her for days. Then one morning, I found something on the front step. A box. Inside, the ring. A photo from the reveal. And a letter. In her handwriting. Just 5 words. He should still know you. And that's when I realized. She was giving me a choice. Not about us. That was broken. But about the child. A child that wasn't mine by blood. But maybe, just maybe, could still be something else. I didn't open the letter again for 3 days. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much. There was something so final about those 5 words. He should still know you. Like she wasn't asking for forgiveness, just offering a way to soften the blow. A peace treaty where there was no war, just 2 people staring at the ashes of what could have been. But on the 3rd day, I sat at the kitchen table with the letter in one hand and a photo in the other. The picture was from the moment I proposed, pink confetti falling, Melissa's hand over her mouth, me down on one knee. It looked perfect. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was the happiest day of our lives. And maybe it still was, for a minute. A long minute. When I finally called her, I didn't know what I was going to say. My voice cracked when she answered. Hers did too. Hey, she said. I got the letter, I replied. Silence. And then, you don't have to do anything, Ryan. I thought you should know the door's open. I sat with that. The door's open. Not for her. For him. I thought about the baby. The child growing quietly in a world that hadn't even begun to explain itself yet. A child who would one day ask questions. Who'd look for faces and photos, for names and stories. And what was I going to say? That I walked away? That I shut the door because the biology didn't line up? That didn't feel like the man I wanted to be. So I asked her, what would that even look like? Me, still being part of this. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I don't know. But he deserves love. And you already have it for him. I've seen it. And that's when it hit me. I did love him. Not because he was mine, but because I'd already built a room in my heart with his name on it. And that love, it didn't just disappear with a test result. I met her at the clinic the next week for a checkup. She invited me, said I didn't have to come, but that she'd like me there. I went. I wasn't sure if I belonged, not really. But when I saw the ultrasound, that flickering heartbeat, the outline of his little face, I felt it all over again. Not the betrayal, not the confusion, just him. This little life that had split my world apart and somehow made space for something new. After the appointment, we walked outside together. She didn't reach for my hand. I didn't reach for hers. That part was gone. But she said something that stuck with me. You don't have to be his father in the way you planned, Ryan. But if you want to, you can still be his home. And somehow, that meant more. It wasn't about what I lost. It was about what I still had the chance to give. So I told her I'd think about it. Really think about it. Not out of guilt or unfinished love, but from the place in me that had once believed I could be the kind of man a kid could count on. That night, I pulled out a box I'd been avoiding. The one with the little hoodie I bought when we found out she was pregnant. The one with the note I wrote, "Can't wait to meet you, little buddy." I sat with it on my lap. And I cried. Not just for the baby. Not just for Melissa. But for the man I was learning to be, the kind who shows up when it's hard, when it's awkward, when it hurts. That's what fatherhood is, right? Not the blood. Not the DNA. But the showing up. And I wasn't sure yet if I could do that. But for the first time in days, I wanted to try. People always say time heals everything. But they never tell you how loud the healing can be. How it creaks and groans and wakes you up in the middle of the night, reminding you that mending something doesn't mean forgetting where it cracked. It's been 4 months since the reveal. 4 months since I learned the baby wasn't mine. And still, I go to every appointment. Not out of duty. Not even out of unfinished love for Melissa. But because there's a little boy coming into this world who never asked for any of this. And he deserves to know that from the very beginning, someone stood up for him. His name is Jonah. Melissa picked it. She asked if I wanted to help choose, but I told her it was hers to give. Still, she said she wanted something biblical. Something about second chances and being spit out of the dark into something better. I said Jonah sounded just right. The day he was born, I sat in the waiting room, heart pounding like I was the father pacing outside in or on every hospital drama I'd ever seen. It didn't matter that I didn't share his blood. I'd already chosen him. Melissa's sister came out an hour later, face soft, eyes red. She didn't say anything, just handed me a small knitted cap and a note. It was from Melissa. He's here. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. And he looks like himself, not you, not Chris. Just him. If you want to hold him, he's waiting. That walk to the room? It felt like I was carrying 1,000 quiet questions in my chest. Would he know me? Would I know what to do? Was I allowed to love him like this? But when I saw him, red-faced, wrapped up like a little burrito, hiccuping in the crook of Melissa's arm, everything stopped. She looked up and whispered, "You still sure?" And I nodded. Because I was. She placed him in my arms. And he fit. That's the only way I can describe it. He just fit. Like the space he took up was always there, just waiting for him to arrive. I didn't say much. Didn't cry, either. Just whispered, "Hey, Jonah. I'm Ryan. I'm not your dad, but I'm gonna love you like one if you'll let me." Melissa looked away then, like she was trying not to fall apart. I stayed for hours. Left only when visiting hours ran out. When I did, I kissed him on the top of his fuzzy little head and promised I'd be back the next day. And I was. Every day after that, too. People asked questions. My own mom needed time. She said, "I just don't understand, Ryan. He's not yours." And I said something that surprised even me. I know. That's what makes the choice matter. That's the thing about fatherhood. It's not always about being first. It's about being there. And I was. Still am. Melissa and I? We're not together. We're co-parenting, whatever that means at this early stage. But we've built something rooted in grace, in respect, in not pretending the past didn't happen, but also not letting it choke out what's left. I still wear the ring sometimes. Not on my finger, around my neck. A reminder of who I thought I'd be, who I almost became, who I chose to become instead. Jonah doesn't know any of this yet. To him, I'm just the guy who makes weird faces during tummy time, who holds him when he cries, who hums off-key lullabies in the early morning when his mom finally gets to sleep. Someday, he'll ask. And I'll tell him. I'll say, "You weren't born from my blood, but you were born from my heart. And from the moment I met you, I've never let go. And maybe that'll be enough." Maybe love doesn't need a DNA match. Maybe all it needs is someone who didn't walk away. So yeah, I proposed at our gender reveal, and the man filming it tried to rewrite the story. But in the end, I wrote a new one, a quieter one, but real, true, and most of all, mine.